Hi, everyone at YouTube. Gonna bring on Facebook people very, very soon. So here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cappuccino, Father Capoverdi. Glad you could join me today. I have my cappuccino, as you can see. I just made it. The foam. I got a lot of foam today, so it's going to be hard to drink this. While so many people are watching. So I'm gonna try to make it graceful. I have a napkin here at the ready, which is I'm gonna need. Today I remembered to dim the lights a little. It might be a little darker on Facebook. On YouTube. For some reason, YouTube needs more light, and Facebook needs less. So I apologize for it being a little not as bright maybe as it could be, but Facebook is really, really bright if I don't dim the lights. So Ave Maria, great to have you watching. Father Bankford came to visit me. That was a great visit, as usual. I'll tell you this, there's never a dull moment when Father Bankford is around. It's just going to be the case that there's never going to be a dull moment when he's around. And he was a great fun to travel with. I'll tell you, when we went to Italy last year, it was a blast. So Lauren, hello. Great to see you watching. Alex Banner. Wow, I haven't seen you in a long time. I'm glad you have your coffee. I haven't seen you in a long time. So I hope everything is going well. I always think about you guys. I go to Bristol a lot, to visit my priest friend, Father Zeno, and I have other friends there that I bump into or whatever when I'm walking around, and so I always pass by your former house and think about you guys and say a prayer. We had a lot of good times when I was there. It was fun. Paul, great to see you watching. Hope everything is going well. There was a little bit of an outbreak at Providence College, so you're in my prayers. I don't agree with saying, well, the kids should go home, because there's an outbreak, or these college kids, they get little aches and pains, and none of them need to be hospitalized at their age. The flu is worse in some cases, depending upon the kind of case you get. Then once they're immune, I guess you can get it again, but it's very highly unlikely that you do. Now you have a whole bunch of college kids who aren't immune, who are immune, and who are even stronger health-wise. So I don't think that college kids should have to go home. I really think they should stay on campus and learn, get their lessons in class, and some colleges, I have to say, maybe they are better off going home because of the radical liberal leftist teachers. But nevertheless, that being set aside, I think we're all praying for our kids. We're all praying for their health and their safety and their well-being. But there's a balance. These kids have to live their lives too. College is you only get 4 years, and it really is your special time to shine and to be away from home for a little bit. Not that I was. I lived at home the whole time. I lived at home until I went into the seminary. Because I went to school right in every school I ever went to, except seminary, was walking distance from my house. I went to Robert F. Kennedy, which was on Eaton Street, and that was a short walk from my house. Then I went to Nathaniel Green for 2 years because Robert F. Kennedy ended at 6th grade. So I went 7th and 8th at Nathaniel Green. And that was a little bit more of a walk, but a lot more of a walk, actually. But nevertheless, we did it. Not all the time. We had parents and friends of parents who went to work around that time, and they would bring us or drop us off. I don't remember parents didn't really drop kids off back then. You just kind of walked. And it was a good walk from Elmhurst to Smith Hill. It wasn't an easy walk. And then I went to LaSalle Academy, which again was like 7 houses down from my from where I lived on my street. And that took about 3 minutes to get there, maybe 4 minutes to get there. But the problem was that I was always late because, except for when I went to mass, because then the priest started celebrating mass in the morning, and then I wanted to get there early so I could go to mass, and then it was fine. I wasn't late. But before, I think he just started celebrating mass there, maybe my junior year, freshman year. But before he did that, oh man, when you live close to rather than have to take a bus or have your parents drive you, and they get you on time there, I would, some days at LaSalle, I think we had to be in at 10 past 8. Some days I would wake up, no word a lie, at 8 o'clock. It was really bad. It was really bad. I would wake up at 8 o'clock. I had 10 minutes to get to school. It was really bad. I know. Not every day, but see, the thing is that there were no girls there at the time. So we were all boys. I was the last class of all boys, actually. So, you're not trying to impress anybody, so, my hair would be like smashed from sleeping, on the side of my head, the tie would already be tied. I love tying ties. And that's something I really miss doing. And I always loved, the motion and everything, and the idea of doing it in the morning and getting ready by putting on a nice tie. So, but I would sometimes just have the tie just already knotted, so I could throw it over my head and put it up. But again, if you wake up at 8 and you have to be in school at 8:10, how are you going to be there on time, even if you live, 5 minutes away, So the problem is that I would always have to go to the brother. His name was Brother Charles, and he was a retired guy. He wore his cassock, which was really nice. He wore his habit, because not all the brothers, unfortunately, wore their habits, but a couple of them did. For the brother Ralph Bucci always wore his habit, and beautiful. The De La Salle brothers have a beautiful habit. If I were a De La Salle brother, I would love that habit. I would wear that habit every day. It's a black. It kind of looks like this. This kind of looks like a cassock, but it has, De La Salle, had those two white French lapels, that would stick out like this. Classy, really, excellent. And I would love to wear that habit if I were a De La Salle brother. I'd wear it, like I said, I wear it every day. But Brother Ralph wore that, and Brother Charles wore that. There were a couple of others that wore. The principal at the time wore it. Brother Jerome was our principal. He didn't wear some guys wore the traditional, kind of thing like this, the two lapels. But some guys would just wear this kind of it was just like a little collar that went all the way around their neck. I mean, it was a religious garment, a religious clothing, to know that they're a brother or they're a priest, or maybe people couldn't tell, but you could tell a brother because that wear the traditional one, because the lapels would come out like this. So Brother Charles would wear the lapel one, and I was in his office all the time, and he'd come in. Well, he didn't have an office; he was just at the counter, and he had the late slips. And because God bless him, he was old, he was. And that's the great thing about religious life is, these guys, they just work, till they die, till God calls them. I hate to put it that way, but that's what they do. It's so awesome, so here's an older guy. I forget what he taught when he was able to teach before he retired from teaching. I think he was a science teacher, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was brother Charles. I think he was a science teacher. But now he was probably in his 70s, or maybe even early 80s. So they would just, put him behind the counter, and say, brother, just, do the late slips. Okay, and his hands were shaky because, he couldn't keep his hand steady. So your late slip was always kind of shaky looking, the penmanship. And then, you have to go to your home room, and you have to bring your late slip, you couldn't go into class unless you had a late slip. So that meant that you'd have an hour detention. So I was always in detention for that reason. So then but what was good about it is you could get work done. That's really when I did my homework, because at home I just got distracted, and I had to play that Atari game, with the two things, the ball would go doop 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 doop, and I get distracted. But when you're in detention, you can't do anything, right? You can't. Back then we didn't have cell phones. I don't know if you can have a cell phone in detention. I'm going to take a sip of this. Hopefully I don't get it on my nose. So obviously we didn't have cell phones in the early 80s. So I don't know. That's when I did my homework, or some of it. We had so much homework. My cousin Michael Colanino would come over a lot of times, and we would do homework together, and it was kind of fun. Sometimes if we were studying for an all-nighter, it was just, we had the most laughs. We'd be at my kitchen table, everyone would be upstairs in bed, and Michael and I would just sit at the table and study, and then take breaks and just like crack each other up. I don't know. It's my cousin Michael Colanino is one of the funniest guys I know. He could crack you up like you wouldn't believe. And I can't say he's a character, because every Italian guy is a character. You can't say, well, he's a character. Well, yeah, we're all, every guy who's Italian is a character. It's an oxymoron to say, hey, oh yeah, he's like that Italian guy. He's a real character. We're all characters. So, but Michael, man, is he funny. And the things he used to do in school, just funny, just really, it's great times. So anyway, I was kind of late a lot, but now, I'm on time for things. I really when I got to college, and that's what my point was about this, is that high school, at least for some kids were much more focused in high school, and I wasn't as much, but some kids were really focused, and they were really kind of diligent about things. And I kind of wasn't as much. But when I got to college, even though like I said, I lived at home, I could walk. And then I walked to Rhode Island. I went to Rhode Island College. So I just walked to Rhode Island College. So I did. I used to walk to college from home. It's unbelievable. But the thing is, though, that it was great because it gives you, and this is why these kids need to be in school, because it's not life-threatening at all for them, right? We know that, God forbid, I would never want to put any of our young people in jeopardy. But it's not life-threatening. And then sometimes your symptoms are really bad, like worse than the flu. And sometimes it can even last for like 2 weeks. Sometimes you really have minor symptoms. You a little bit of chills, a little bit of a headache, a little bit of a sore throat, apparently. And kids can get that. They're strong enough that they can overcome that. If there was any danger of them, needing to be hospitalized, or if there was a percentage of them that was alarming, even a small percentage, it really even isn't a small percentage of them, unless they have real strong preconditions, which some college kids do, of course. Not all college kids, just because they go to college, are strong. Some unfortunately have health issues, and then that totally I can understand. But college is a time, even though I lived at home, and even though I used to walk to college, it's a time that you kind of come into your own, at least for a lot of kids. I don't know. Maybe I can speak for myself, and others I know who tell me this as well. For myself, it was a time, and especially because the schedule is so nice. I used to love the schedule of college, because I hated, the rigorous day of being there from 8:10 until 2:30. It was just you had 6 classes. Every class gave you homework, of course, and you're constantly moving around. From minute to minute. Every minute counts. You have to be in this class, and then you have to be in that class, and then you go to the cafeteria, and then you gym class, and so it was very stressful for me. I don't know. I enjoyed high school, but it was stressful. But then college is great because you have class at 10. I love that. It would be like, oh, great. I could sleep in. I can, get a little work done if I need to before the class. If there's a test or an exam or something before the class, you wake up a little earlier, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and go to the library beforehand, and you have time to study. It's not at 8:10, that you have to begin. So I hate to have these kids, not have that beautiful experience. So, Paul, keep up the good work and hang in there. I know it must be really hard, what you're doing and teaching, and right now in this environment. I know my niece is a teacher, and she's, having struggles. She has to, really bear it, grin and bear it, because there's a lot that you have to do. Our catechism teachers, think about how great it is that people are stepping forward to teach catechism. Like, that's just so awesome. That they're willing to come into class with these kids. They're willing to do the things they need to do with the COVID requirements and everything. It's just so awesome. Some parishes are doing it online. I'm not doing mine online because I'm following the lead of Westerly. Westerly, they're having classes. They're scattered. I understand, but I mean, we only meet once a week. So I mean, it's not like if it was every day, I would make them virtual. Or if Westerly feels like they're going to close down their schools, God forbid, if there's a problem or an issue, then we'll do it online. But right now, I think we're pretty safe. So, Marie, great to see you watching. How is Olive? Tell Olive I said hello. Olive is Anne-Marie's cat. Isn't it sad that I'm not saying tell Anthony I said hello? I'm not telling your son I said hello. I'm telling Olive I said hello. It's kind of bad, but that's how much my sister and I love our pets. But of course, we love our family as well. So tell Anthony I said hello. And Jimmy, glad you're watching. Excellent. Wonderful. Great that you're able to take the time to watch. I'm not sure where you are in the world right now. I think you're back home, aren't you? I hope so. So great. You're my prayers always. Sue, great to see you watching. My cousin, wonderful to see you. Leonie, great to see you watching. And Janet, Del Judas, hi, glad you're watching. Pia, great to see you, Pia. Glad you're able to keep up with everything and be there for times of prayer. Everyone is saying hello. Alex, great to see you again. Let me see what Alex said. Oh, he's just watching. Okay, good. And good afternoon, Father. Greetings from South Africa. Wow, you're in South Africa. God bless you. That really is awesome. It's just a long way from here, isn't it? And you're able to watch this and be part of the show. It's great. My cousin Arlene, hello, Arlene. Last week I had to get up to do the light, and I didn't say hello to you. So, but then later on I saw, oh, she was watching. Good, which you always do. But it's great that you're watching too. Love you, and can't wait to see you guys at some point. We're better now where we're kind of getting out more, but that's why we really have to make arrangements to see each other. Robert, hi, good to see you watching. Great to be in touch with you recently. And there's no virus in South Africa. That's great. That's awesome news. Excellent. Keep up the good work down there. Nancy Kelly, George, hi. Glad you're watching. Salvatore Capalbo, hi. Wonderful to see you. Mary Ann, I've been okay. This is Alex trying to get good. Excellent. Well, keep up the good work. And that's what you have to do, Alex, right? I always had faith that would happen, especially your mom. She would certainly love that. Evelyn Sorois, hi, great you're watching. Vincent Salito, is this the Vincent that is Dawn's brother? I wonder, because I think her brother's name was Vincent, right? We've known each other long. Brian, great to see you watching. Let me take a sip here of my cappuccino. I've been managing to get all this foam, and I've been managing to not get any on my nose. Evelyn, great you're watching. Sorois, thank you, Father, for your insight. Ties are not easy. I know they're not easy. But I love teaching kids tie. Like some kids will for confirmation or something, and they'll, at rehearsal, and they'll have a tie, and how do you tie it? Or if I get the opportunity, two things I love to do is teach kids how to tie ties. I think this really is important that every kid who's a boy should know how to tie a tie. I really think that's important. Also, what I like to do is teach kids how to drive a manual. I really believe that it really is important that they learn how to drive. My car is a manual. I never want to have a car that's not a manual. I've always had manuals. I went 2 times maybe without having a manual, but I, regretted it. And as soon as I could, I got rid of the car and got one. I just need to move when I'm driving. I just want to shift. I want to put my foot on a clutch. I want to feel like I'm driving the car. I was renting this car because my car was being serviced. And so they gave me at the dealership, they gave me this car to use in the interim. And I'm driving it and it's stopping at red lights. Like, what the heck is this? This car's stopping it. I'm used to the opposite. I'm used to putting that thing in gear with my foot on the clutch, letting my foot go from the clutch and moving, when I'm stopped. And the engine, still, revving. My goodness gracious, I couldn't believe it. I said that when I handed the car back, I said, this car was stopping. He's like, please don't get me started. I don't know. To me, that's annoying. Like, to me, if you're at a light and then your car stops and the light turns green and you got to go, you put your foot on the gas. Now you have to, wait for it to start up again and then go. How much gas and energy could you possibly save, folks? Really? I mean, when you're idle like that at a red light, how much time are you idle? Maybe what? Less than a minute or a minute, right? If you just catch the light, and how many times are you stopped at a light that you just caught the light? So if you're stopped at a light and you're 30 seconds, is this really saving gas? Maybe it is a little, but we're not in that kind of a crisis, folks. We have a lot of energy, and I just don't get it. I just don't get these cars that stop. So I was very appreciative to pick my car up, and to have a manual, and to determine how much gas I want to put in the engine when I go, and not have it determine it when I put my foot on the gas. So because with a shift, with a manual, you're really driving the car. That's what driving. What does the word drive mean? It means to drive. You're driving. You're in control of the engine. You're in control of the aspects of the car that make it go. If someone has drive in life, they have this energy that propels them every day to accomplish their goals for the day. They're driven. We use that word driven. We drive. We're driven. And when you're in a car that's an automatic, you're steering. You're not really driving the car. You're steering the car. But when you have a manual, you're driving it, and that's what I like. I like to feel the car being driven. Like I like to be part of the experience of driving, because if I got to drive, it's boring. Like I was in Providence yesterday, and I was driving home, and I was thinking to myself, if I had to get into an automatic and drive home, I'd just be like, just like this, but with a shift, there's traffic ahead. Whoops, you gotta put your, you gotta move, and you gotta do things. You gotta, it keeps you engaged in the whole experience of driving. Anyway, that's what I think that it's, important for us to look at some of these things and to say, where are we going as a society, that we, especially 35 years from now, from what I understand, they're saying around that time, there's not going to be any more gas cars that run on gas. Well, I just want to keep my car then, and I'll just keep repairing it and repairing the body and repairing the engine. And hopefully there'll be gas stations around. I mean, I'll be 70, but it was, more than that. I'm less than that. I think they said, I think I'm saying 70 because it said 15 years. I think less than that, 15 years, there'll be no more gas. So gas cars. Well, I'm just going to, I hope there'll be gas stations around, because I don't know. I don't want to drive an electric car. Sorry. So anyway, let's keep going here and saying hello to everyone. Ida, hi. Cheryl, Speranza, hello. Great to see you watching. Yeah, my sister is laughing about Michael. Gina, I'm so glad you're watching. How you doing, Gina? Great to see that you're streaming with me. I hope everything's well. I haven't seen you in a while. We'll probably have to see each other at some point when my niece has some kind of event going on that you're going to be there for. So I'm looking forward to that when that happens. Hi, Jane. Great to see you. James, Primo. Hi, Pia. Sorry to change the subject, but the school in Rome. Let me see. Marymount School in Rome. St. Stephen in Rome as well. Subject, but are you familiar? Is that the school, Pia? I'm familiar with a school. I don't think this is the school. Is it in Intrastevere? Is this school Intrastevere? Because I think I know a school. I think I know a school that's in Trastevere, but I'm not sure if it's that one. So where in Rome is it? I think if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's in Trastevere. Kathy, hello. Everyone, hi. That's good. Good to see you. Gianna watching. Boys are in school today. Yeah. Cheryl Speranza is telling me that. That's great. I am glad to see it. Angelo, glad you're watching. So, we have very interesting events that are going on in our country, right? We really have to pray for our country. That's why I'm doing the 54-day Rosary Novena prayer, because it's really important that we pray for our country to have, if a person particularly has unrest inside of them, it's not good. They're gonna self-destruct. You can't have unrest within yourself. You have to have peace inside of yourself. That's why we take nature walks. That's why we take a walk on the beach. That's why we spend quiet time listening maybe to classical music. Most especially, that's why we go into the adoration chapel to commune with the Lord and pray. So these things are important for us in our mental health. To have these things in place for us to do. Now, the problem we have right now is if our country were like if our country was like a person, and it would be, we know that it's going to self-destruct because it's unrest. So we really can't have this unrest. And so why is this happening? You ever think of that? Like, everybody thinks of that, but you ever try to answer the question out loud, maybe, why this is happening? My opinion is it's not a coincidence that all of this is happening in 2020 because it's an election year for the re-election of the president of the United States. That's why it's happening. It's not because, 2020, could 2020 get any worse? It's not a coincidence that all of this stuff is happening, and it's also an election year to try and re-elect the most pro-life president in the United States. That's not a coincidence. And so we can't look at it and say it's bad luck for us. Like, we can't look and say, wow, it just so happens. Wow, isn't that incredible that it just so happens that all this bad stuff is happening in 2020? Wow, what an unlucky year it must be. How sad it is that I can't wait for 2020 to be over because It just seems like it's getting worse and worse. And it's just weird that this is happening this year. It must be an unlucky year, and we're just unfortunate circumstances all round up. No, the reason why we are having this kind of unrest and of situations that are occurring in our country is because it is the re-election of the President of the United States. That's why. Because what makes this president unusual politically is that he had no source of base of people in Washington, like in the swamp. He had no swamp creatures in Washington to back him up when he became president. So they would have done the same exact thing to George Bush, George Bush Jr. and even George Bush Sr. They would have done the same exact thing. They would have caused when George Bush Jr., George Bush II, W, I guess they call him, when he took power and won in 2000, President Clinton would have done the same exact thing that Obama did to Trump if he could get away with it. But the thing is, he couldn't get away with it because the Bushes have entrenched themselves in Washington and in the establishment. So they had many, many minions that have been placed in governmental positions, unelected governmental positions, that would have not tolerated the Bushes being treated that way. And they had protection because of that. The Bushes, even though they were Republican and they were hated by the press and they were, hated by the Democrats, and they just were told every bad thing was said about them that could be said, or written about them that could be written. Warmonger, he hates, he wants people to die, and all this stuff that they said about him. There's no doubt about it. They hated him, not maybe as much as they do Trump, but they still hated him. Hated him. So, but their hands were tied. Once he won, there was nothing they could do because the Bushes. Well, the Bushes were the Republican mafia. They had their minions all over the departments of government that just would have been impossible for them. They had too much protection for the Democrats to really try to have a great deal of upheaval and not have a good transition of power. That's what prevented. People say it's the high-mindedness of elected officials that made it a peaceful transfer of power. That's not the case. It wasn't due to the fact that you don't hate someone as much as these guys hate each other, and then all of a sudden the election's over and you have a smooth transition between the two parties. You don't do that just because you're high-minded and because you think that a president deserves, to have the proper treatment in a transition of power. We're finding out that really isn't the main reason why. The main reason why is because the two parties had their minions entrenched in these governmental departments and unelected officials. We call them the swamp creatures and things. They were entrenched, and that was their protection, that you really couldn't get away with too much for the other party because there would be whistleblowers all over the place, if that were the case. But the unique thing about the current president is that he had none of that whatsoever. So now he runs against not only the Democrats, but he's running against the establishment of the Republican Party, which is why you have these never Trumpers. Do you ever scratch your head? Not that I ever pretty much anymore watch MSNBC or CNN. The only times I watch it is because Fox News will have clips from them, and I'll have to listen to these clips, and I get aggravated, but Fox News wants to make a point, so they're telling you what these guys are up to. And And you see Republicans, people who worked in the Bush administration and people, who are lifelong Republicans who are on these shows and who are just as severe of a critic as Trump as the Democrats. And you wonder, like, what happened to them? Like, they're a Republican. I thought, you belong to a party, no matter who runs, as long as he's, acting like a Republican, which certainly this president is. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's one of the most conservative in his implementation of the rules than anyone else. I mean, he's given us tremendous judges on all kinds of levels of the court, conservatives. He's given us 2 conservative justices. We're on the way to another originalist justice. He's keeping his promises in that sense. What's there not to like about him if you're a Republican? If you're a Democrat, I could see why. And Democrats only use ad hominems against him. Oh, he's too abrupt. He tweets, too much. Well, look at Clinton. I mean, I have to sit here and listen to these people say he tweets too much and he's too arrogant. And Clinton did what he did in the Oval Office, and it's like, oh no, it's a personal matter. As long as he does his job and he does it well, which he's doing, I don't care what he does otherwise. He can do anything he wants privately or say whatever he wants. It's what he's doing. The job performance is all that matters. We had to hear this for 8 years, them saying this. And now all of a sudden you're going to judge this guy on his character and on his, tweeting and not on the job performance, which was stellar. So I don't know. It just, to me, it's very inconsistent, but that's the way politics is. It's inconsistent, but it's never been this diabolical in a sense, because when Trump won, when the president won, he shockingly, of course, I always knew he would, but there were people who were very, very surprised. I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised, but I just had a sense. I just said he's going to win. So anyway, when he did, he came into office, and the problem is that he had no backers in these critical positions, kind of embedded in governmental departments. And so, unlike George W. Bush or even George Sr. Bush, when they were elected, they had these minions embedded in these departments, working side by side with liberal minions embedded in departments, and they kind of balanced each other out. You can't get away with too much if someone's looking over your shoulder and going to call you out on it because you're attacking their guy. But Trump had none of it. None of them were his guys. Very few. I shouldn't say none. Very few. I'm sure some of them voted for him secretly, even maybe because they didn't want blowback from their colleagues, but nothing like the establishment structure of what the Bushes have built up. Because when you think about it, there has been a Bush or a Clinton on the ticket for how long? About maybe 40 years when you think about it. All right, because Bush was on the ticket in the 80s. Okay, so 80, 84. And then Bush becomes president in 88. So a Bush is on the ticket. So a Bush has been on the ticket all through the 80s. Now a Bush is on the ticket in 88. And then in 92, a Clinton is on the ticket for 2 years. I mean, for 8 years. So then in 2000, we have a Bush on the ticket, right? And now for 8 more years, a Bush is on the ticket. So from 1980 to 2000, what would it be? 2004. There have been 2008. I'm sorry, 2008. So from 80 to 2008, there has been either a Bush or a Clinton on the ticket. And then we go 8 more years after that, and there's not, but a Clinton was running for president. So you could say that she wasn't on the ticket, but she was running for president in 2008. So a Clinton was running for president. And then she loses, of course, in the primary, and Obama now is 8 years. So we have an 8-year respite from this, and then again in 2016 we have a Clinton again on the ticket. So there's a little 8-year where we don't, but from 1980, think about it, from 1980 to 2016. Think about that. 1980 to 2016, we have had either a Clinton or a Bush that has been on the ticket or run for president. The only time we didn't was have neither one of them running was in Obama's second-year term, and then the next term she was on the ticket. A Clinton was on the ticket. And imagine if she won, and we had a Clinton now from 2016 until 2024. That would be from 84 to 24 to 2024. With a Clinton or a Bush on the ticket, except for 8 years of that time. It's just unbelievable, isn't it? So this is the reason what these people have. When they were in power, they embedded their people in these positions for their own protection and for their own support, because they knew in 1980, Bush was thinking, I'm going to run this table. I have sons, Jeb runs, and there's a Bush running for president in 2016. So again, you can say that Jeb is running for president in 2016. So there's another Bush. Imagine if he won, which you look at his candidacy, it never would have happened because he was running as a Democrat. How can you be a Republican running as a Democrat? It's impossible to win. I don't know what his strategy was. He was Jeb Bush said his favorite politician, and he wants to emulate his presidency after Lyndon Johnson. So you're going to model your presidency after one of the most wildly liberal presidents of the 60s, who exploded, all of the social programs and put us in the mess, that we're in today, with people being dependent on government and government assistance. You're going to put that is Lyndon B. Johnson is your role model for presidency, and you're running as a Republican? I don't think so. And the people, what did he get? Less 1% of the vote, 2% of the vote. But he was running. So I think George Bush certainly had this strategy. He was a smart strategy. I have sons, I'll embed all these people in government, give them government jobs. It's the greatest thing you can do for someone is give them a job. Buddy Cianci knew that very, very well. He knew that very well, that people would be loyal to him if he gave them a job. And that's what Bush did. And that's what the Clintons did. And that's how they were able to run the table. When you think about it, they ran the table from 1980, and they're even still an influence now. The Bushes, not so much, because they're kind of fed up and they're done. But the Clintons, as you know, are still very much involved in politics and in shaping political thought in this country. That's a long, long time. So the problem is now, enter Donald J. Trump, who's a businessman. He's not raising money the traditional way because he doesn't want to be beholden to these guys, these lobbyists. So he's pretty much financing his own campaign or relying on individual small donations. And so he's not beholden to anyone. So now these guys aren't owning him, and they're not going to protect him after he's president. Forget about it. Why would these big corporations and these big lobbyist firms, when he's not getting money, taking money from them, why should they protect him? But all the other presidents, of course, including Biden, are taking these big financial assistance and help politically from these guys. So of course they're going to protect them after they are elected. And it's interesting because the president was on an interview recently, and he asked him, "Are you worried about you not raising as much money as the Democrats this year. And he said, well, I won last time on spending a fraction of what Hillary Clinton spent. And he said, and plus I'm not raising that much money as the Democrats because I don't want to take their money because then I'm beholden to them. And I don't want to win and have them come up to me and say, hey, now it's time for you to pay back. So that's really why he's, smartly, wisely, not getting money from these big corporations. That's why the Democrats are raising more money. So that really is the problem with our democracy in this sense. Why you see it being broken. Like I said at the beginning of this, I was saying, why is there so much unrest? Why is there so much? Because they can get away with it because Trump only has us. He doesn't have the establishment of either party. He doesn't have the minions embedded in governmental positions. He just has us. We're the only ones he has. And that's enough because it'll get him elected again. But it's going to cause all this trouble. They would never do this with either of the two parties, presidents who were in the establishment. They couldn't get away with it. Soros and these guys, they just couldn't get away with it because the Bushes would never allow all of this to happen. George Soros to do this, or whoever is bankrolling them, all these, radical liberal leftist billionaires. The Bushes knew they could never do this to the Bushes. The Bushes would crush them because they could. They have all kinds of influence all over the country since 1980. Forget about it. It's just not going to happen that they would allow that people could get away with this. The Bushes would never allow it. That they could call up the people in all of these states where this unrest is happening and say, look, you better do something about this. There are going to be consequences. And then the phone hangs up, and then all of a sudden the unrest stops. But Trump can't do that. Trump just doesn't have that network built up politically. He has a network of construction people. He has a network of real estate people. That's what he built his network on in New York City, creating big buildings and doing major construction jobs in New York City. That was his network of people. And there, no one could touch him. Of course, he would get on the phone. He had politicians in his pocket because he could, pay he could bankroll their elections, and then they're beholden to him. So he knows how it's played. And he was, as an American, anyone can do that. So he was saying, hey, look, it's better to have the mayor with me than against me if I'm going to be doing all this construction in Manhattan. So that was his real network, right? Not politics. And we never had a president who was elected without being elected to anything else before. So because this is the results. You always wonder, what would it be like if we elected a president of the United States who was never elected to any public office before? What would that look like? You're looking at it now. This is exactly what you're looking at. You're looking at a guy who's not beholden to anyone, who's a conservative in the sense that he's really focused on his base and protecting it and making sure that the base is happy, and because that's what got him elected, and he's not beholden to anyone. He's able to accomplish all kinds of great things. But the problem with that is, the upside is the things I just said. He's not beholden to anyone. He's not a politician where he had to make all kinds of deals with the devil, before becoming president. He's completely independent of all of that, which is why we've made so much progress in 3 years. But the problem is that we know now what it looks like. What would happen if just an American who never was involved in politics, not even a lawyer, and just decides he's going to run for president and wins? We're watching now what will happen, that he can easily be impeached, because they're not going to impeach George Bush. Why didn't they impeach George W. Bush when they went during the Iraq War? They hated George Bush. They despised him. and they hated the war, even though most of the Democrats voted for the war. And then as soon as the war got a little problematic, they all pulled away and said, oh, and we're not going to support it anymore because politically it wasn't expedient for them. When it was politically expedient for them, they supported the war. And then as soon as the war had some trouble, and especially politically, they go like this and say, okay, we're not for the war anymore. Because it's going to politically help us. We can rally a whole bunch of people who are on our side about this, and let our troops just sit there and not be protected or supported. So Bush saw it through. And whether you like the war or not, the Democrats voted for it, and it happened. So then they pulled out when it got rough. And when political opinion turned, rather than seeing it through and saying, look, we voted for it, we're going to see it through, we're going to make sure it's, we win. But why wouldn't they have impeached W at that time? They hated W. They would have loved to impeach him. That would have been the crown jewel on their royal throne, to say that George W. Bush was impeached. But they couldn't do it because they knew he was too entrenched and had too many minions in these departments that would never allow it. Protection. He had political backup and protection. President Trump doesn't have that. He doesn't have that political backup and protection. That's the downside of running for president when you've never been elected to anything before. So that's what the American people have to decide. Do we want a president that's going to be an independent-minded person who's going to care about, do the things he said he was going to do when he become president? Why are we surprised? He said he was going to do these things. He does them, and everyone's shocked. I can't believe he's doing this. Well, he said he would. I can't believe he's building a wall. Well, he said he would. I can't believe he moved the embassy to Jerusalem. Well, he said he would. So what's the surprise? So I think this is really at the crux of why you see so much social unrest, and that's why 2020 is the way it is. It's not a coincidence, folks. It's not just bad luck. What a terrible year. I can't wait for this year to be over, because it's so bad. Could 2020 be any worse? It's not a coincidence. All this is happening, and 2020 is the re-election year for the president, folks. Not a coincidence. And it'll get better. If the president's reelected, we'll have 4 years of because they'll have been defeated. But the thing is, it really has to be a significant victory. I mean, it just can't be. If they keep the House and they swing the Senate on their side, even if the president wins, they're going to impeach him. And this time they can, and they can get him out of office this time. They'll find something. Look, they're finding something now. They're saying they want to impeach him over him wanting to pick a Supreme Court nominee. So they'll find something, and they'll convince and the press, of course, the mainstream media will totally be on their side and promote their viewpoint. They're actually control. It's not the Democrats that are controlling the mainstream media. It's the mainstream media that's controlling the Democratic Party now. It kind of flipped. It used to be the other way around. Now it flipped. So because most of these guys are Democratic politicians who became media journalists. And so they're driving the whole narrative. Every day they're driving the narrative. That's why when Biden was asked, what do you think about stacking the Supreme Court? He said, I don't want to talk about it because it's not the subject right now. We're talking about the pandemic right now, because he knows that, this is the narrative. The press decides, the Democrats decide what the narrative is going to be, not anyone else, not a journalist from another network or another persuasion of political views. The narrative is going to be set by the media, and then the Democrats follow along with it, because the media thinks that they're the professionals who know how to persuade people and influence people's thinking. And so you got to listen to us. We're the professionals here when it comes to opinions of people and how we can shape them. So you just follow us, follow our lead. But this is going to be in the narrative today. This will be the narrative today. We're going to ignore, the riots and this and that. And so that's why the Democrats ignored it, because the press was ignoring it. As soon as the press said, the polls are getting a little south on Biden, now all of a sudden the Democrats they follow what the mainstream media says, because, they're the professionals, and they're thinking, this is how to win, by following the professional media people, media consultants who are claiming that they know how to bring this over the finish line. So that's why if only the president is elected, folks, just to prepare you, and the Senate and the House, the Senate flips to Democrat and the House stays Democrat, and President Trump wins, he's going to be impeached, and he's going to be removed from office. So it's unfortunate. It's not just the presidency. It's not just, oh, wow, I wonder who's going to be president. It's not that. It's who's going to be president. And then they just need one chamber to have that party of the same, because if the shoe was on the other foot, there's no way the Republicans could get away with, if they had the House and they had the Senate and there was a Democrat president, there's no way that the House and the Senate, even though they're Republican, could impeach a Democrat president the way they could Trump. Because again, that Democrat president has all kinds of minions embedded in governmental departments, and it would just be impossible and it would have been impossible if the Senate and the House were both Democrat and Bush was Republican. It would be impossible for them to get Bush that way, because Bush again would have too much support and backup in these departments. Protection, you buy the political protection, from lobbyists, from people that you gave jobs to. That's how you buy their loyalty and buy their protection. So it protects you from a party just frivolously saying they're going to impeach you. Trump doesn't have that protection. Like I said, the only protection he has is you and I. That's it. Which is enough, because we have the power to elect them, but we also have the power to elect the House and the Senate, which you have to think of those things, because without those two, our vote is going to be meaningless. You can vote for the president, but if the House and Senate go Democrat, then there's going to be no point in voting for the president, because they're going to impeach him and they're going to be able to get away with it. But if the Republicans flip the House, which would be really incredible if they could do that. But unfortunately, the Senate flips, then it's still okay. Not as great, but it's still okay, because the House is the one that initiates the impeachment. So the Republicans won't do that unless there's something really egregious, which we don't anticipate there will be. That's why this is so important. But as much as I love to tussle about this, I was involved in politics since I was 10 years old. I was a politics major in college. I went to Catholic U in Washington, D.C. from my seminary. So so I was right in the heart of the nation's capital for 4 years. So as much as I love all this talk, really what's important for us is to pray. That really is the essence of how we're going to accomplish anything is through prayer. Because if we rely on our own abilities, we're not going to get very far. We're going to be very, very frustrated if we rely on our own abilities to make effective change in the world. We live in a democracy. That's what the way a democratic republic. It's not a total democracy. We live in a republic, really, that happens to be a democracy, but we're really a republic. But this is our form of government. This is what we're born into. And so if we lived a while ago, 400, 500, 600 years ago, it would be different. We wouldn't be living in a democracy. If we lived in a Catholic country, we would be living in a divine right monarchy. And that went by the wayside. No longer does the Pope appoint kings to be monarchs, and they're answerable to him and morally for what they do in their country. We're no longer in the position to have that situation occur. where we're protected by a king morally by our beliefs in our country, because he's beholden to the Pope, who is, of course, the safeguard of Christianity and the vicar of Christ. That's not our situation. For better or worse, maybe probably even for better, I don't know, but maybe for worse, I don't know. But for better or worse, we're not in a divine right monarchy. We're in a democratic republic. And that means that we have a responsibility to make our voices be heard, to make our points, as long as it's not a mob. I think if the Catholic Church was behaving the way some of these organizations are behaving, we would be run out of town. And I don't think we'd have any followers whatsoever because of our terrible behavior. That's what is really mystifying to me is how these people are getting so much support when we never really believed in mob rule as Americans. Like, we never believed might was right as Americans. We always, for our domestic affairs, we always felt like the way that you gain power in America is through persuasion, through argument, through intellectual abilities, through academics. If you really study hard and you belong to the debate club, and you graduate magna cum laude from Harvard, you're in the position. We elect people like this because they're in the position to articulate their points and argue better than we can, who didn't go to Harvard, who weren't on the debate. I was on the debate club in college, but I didn't go to Harvard. So we rely on them to, whether we're conservative or liberal, we rely on them to make our arguments for us because they're better at it. Like, when I listen to Ted Cruz, for example, on the news, I love him, because I'm listening to him and I'm saying he can articulate himself so well and he can express himself so well. He's very articulate and he can express himself so well. And he is a great arguer and a great debater. And so if I was on that show, I would maybe be like, oh, well, I get tongue-tied, but him, boom, it's all right there, right in the top of his head, because he has a gift for that. So that really is America. We can't maybe do the things that they do, but we elect them because we want the two sides to fight it out through their intellectual prowess. We want them to fight it out through words, through argument, through debate, through persuasion. And that's really the American way, is to argue intellectually your points to persuade the other side or to win a particular case, in front of a judge. But if we're going to resort to mob rule, what the heck is that? I mean, that's what might makes right now. Now all of a sudden we can't do A, B, and C politically because we're afraid of the mob consequences of our cities being burned to the ground. Is this America? Are we afraid we're afraid to speak out? We shouldn't, as Americans, we shouldn't be afraid to put a bumper sticker on our car, to support the candidate we want, to articulate our points the way we want, in a very charitable way. If we're arguing and we're being ad hominem attacks and we're being uncharitable and name calling, well, that's not going to solve anything, and we deserve to have to zipper our lip. But if we're really going to, America is really about arguing our points. But if we're going to resort to the lowest common denominator of mob rule, of look, you do what we want, or we're going to burn your city down. What choice do you have? You have the choice. Either you vote for the people we want. If you're a court of law, either you make decisions in a court of law, regardless of the evidence. We don't care about the evidence. We don't care about what happened factually. We don't care about a jury, making a decision based on the facts of the case. We don't care about that. We're just telling you, this is the decision we want. And we're going to make you an offer that you can't refuse. You either make, even though the facts are not on our side, doesn't matter. We're the mob. Just want you to know, do you like your house? Do you like your neighborhood? Do you like going to the coffee shop down the street in peace? Do you like eating dinner in peace? If you like these things, hey, you got to do what we want, or we're going to make you an offer you can't refuse. I mean, this is a mob. This is a mob way of approaching politics and government. And it's just shocking to me that there are even people who support people who are part of this coalition. I don't understand it. If my coalition, which are pro-lifers, which are conservatives, originalists on the Supreme Court, Catholics who are devout, take their faith seriously. This is my coalition. This is what I consider my coalition. If my coalition, if there was a group of my coalition that was saying we're going to burn the city down unless we get an originalist on the Supreme Court, I wouldn't want to be part of that movement. I would be very upset, and I would say, what a shame. I think we can make great progress, but this group is messing everything up, and now I can't be a part of it because I refuse to be a part of a mob rule position. And so I have to now, regroup, figure out what I want to do with, what group I want to be in now. Can I develop another group? Or maybe there is another group out there that excludes this group but still has the values that I have. I'd have to make decisions, but I can't, but I would never vote for a politician who, is part of the coalition of this group. I just couldn't do it. And it's shocking that people that they will vote for somebody who has as part of their coalition, a group of people, a large group of people in many cities who are wanting politicians to make decisions, whether they're right or wrong, or whether they have the votes or not, based on, do you want your neighborhood to look the way it does, a peaceful, nice, friendly neighborhood? If you want that, then you have to do what we want, regardless if you believe in it or not, or regardless about the facts or whatever, doesn't matter. And so that's why there's people are going up to people in restaurants and tipping over their tables and throwing drinks in their face and chanting these horrific things to them as they're eating, because they know that people, they think that people are going to say, oh boy, they want to intimidate them. But what they don't understand is that Americans don't get intimidated like that. We don't. That really is the great thing about America, is that we'll do the opposite, because that's who we are. I hate to admit it. And I know I'm Italian, and I'm 100% Italian. All my ancestry is Italian. My ancestry only came to this country the turn of the last century, my roots certainly are in Italy, and my blood is certainly Italian. But I'm an American. I grew up in America. My parents grew up in America. My friends are American, of course. And we know Americans, and Americans, they don't tolerate that. They may be silent about it, but they won't tolerate it. They won't tolerate not being able to enjoy a dinner in peace and be intimidated by them to say, okay, we'll give you your way. This is a temper tantrum. That's what this is. And this is a result of these kids for years and years of years being told that they can do anything they want. Their teachers don't say no to them because their teachers are afraid of them, because they'll write them up and the principal will take the student side. So the teachers don't say no to them and let them get away with anything they want. Their parents oftentimes will let them get away with anything they want. They never say no. I was talking to a woman who's a nanny, and she was a nanny. And she said, Father, there's a very, very wealthy family, and I live in Westerly, so Watch Hill isn't too far by, and other neighborhoods like that in New England near here kind of have some shketl, as we say, they have some money. So she said, I'm nanny for one of these families, And the parents told me, now listen, you're going to be the nanny, and they're interviewing me, and they said, now we never say no to our children. So when you're with them and when we're not there, you never say no to them. You just do what they want, because we have it in our belief system and our philosophy as parents that we will never say no to our children. So she's like, you don't know what this is like, being a nanny of somebody who never says no to their children. She says, the kids say, I want to go to the beach. Okay, so she packs up all the things. You know how hard it is to pack up for the beach. The cooler, and you're bringing the bags and if you go to the beach, and in Rhode Island, we know what that's like. If you live near the beach, you have your chairs and everything, and kids especially, they want their pails, their shovels, their, snacks and everything. With kids, it's a whole other realm. I mean, for me, I go to the beach a lot. I have a bag, I have a cooler, and I have a chair. And I can carry all three, and I just go right on the beach, put them down, and boom, I'm done. But parents, you see them, my parishioners, who go to the beach, who have kids, God bless them. They do such a great job, and they come to the beach, and they have all this equipment, and they're putting up, they want umbrellas because the kids are little. You don't want them to get too much sun. So parents are heroes in that sense. Around here, when I see them at the beach, I just love seeing them at the beach with their kids, because I love to go to the beach with my family when I was a kid. And it reminds me of that. That's why I like to see it. But anyway, this family particularly, was saying no. So the nanny was saying, I have to pack all this stuff up. I have to bring it to the beach. We get everything settled on the beach. And the kids say to me, we want to go get ice cream in town. And she can't say no. So she has to pack everything up. Like 15 minutes after she went to the beach, she has to pack everything up and put it all away, and then take them for ice cream, because they said they wanted to go 15 minutes after they got to the beach, because she can't say no to them. So if this is the prevailing attitude, where all kids get trophies, no one loses, no winners and losers. I mean, look at me when I was a small kid. Of course, I'm small now. I was a small kid. I wasn't a tall kid, and then all of a sudden I stopped growing. I was always small. And I played Little League, and I was on the bench for most of the game. I'm not saying that I want that to go back the way it was then, but I mean, back then, you just took it. You were on the bench. You weren't as good as the other kids. You were on the team. You had a uniform on. If we were winning like 9-0 in the last inning, I could go into right field and play. A rock could play right field in Little League, because not many kids are left-handed and can hit it that far, if they are out that direction. So if we were leading like 9-0, and I could play right field for the last inning of the game, they felt like there's not much he can do to make us lose if we're that winning or losing. Either way, that would be the case. But I mean, not to say I want to go back to those days. I think it's good that now that kids, have a turn, and they have to, each kid has to play a certain amount. I think that's all great. So there have been advances that have been made since then, in my opinion. But I mean, to be honest, I didn't mind. I mean, I was just like, okay, they're better than me. I'm not as good. Maybe I need to practice more. I wasn't into it as much as they were, even. I can remember back then. So, I mean, they were into it more than I was. And then maybe if I was into it more, I could have had more playing time. But so there are improvements that are made. I'm not saying that we should go back to those days, but not everybody should get a trophy. And at times we have to say no to people, to kids. But we have a generation now, and it's not everyone. I think there are a lot of parents, like I know in my parish, they're great. I see my moms and dads in my parish, and they are like, no, this is how it is. I'm the mom, I'm the dad. And that's why, I don't know. I think maybe that's why Rhode Island, we're not as bad as most states. Because in Rhode Island, I don't experience that as much. In my parishes, maybe because it's a Catholic church, and Catholic parents, I think, maybe have a different understanding of parenthood than maybe non-Catholics do. So I don't experience it personally, this going on, because like I said, I experience parents who are great. But I think overall, our general society, in the United States, as a general rule, kids are pretty much in control, and not the parents and the teachers. And when that happens, they're going to get older and they're not going to get their way all the time. You don't get your way all the time. I mean, I realize at a young age, I'm not as good as other kids the way I can play baseball. I'm not going to get my way, then I'm going to start at shortstop. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to get my way. If I could get my way back then, I would love to be the starter in the Little League game at shortstop. I would love that, but it's not going to happen, and then you learn that and you're like, okay, I got to learn, that there are some things I'm going to be disappointed about. And that's why I think these young people, they get disappointed about politics, about things that happen, like that don't go their way. A president wins that they don't like, that doesn't go their way. A Supreme Court nominee gets appointed that they don't like. Things aren't going their way. And so you have these people. You see this girl on this video. I mean, I hate to say it, it's kind of funny, but I feel bad for her. She's like driving. She's like, Ruth Ginsburg just died. And her hair is going in front of her face, and she's getting so emotional. She's crying. Hey, come on, give it a break. Life is this way. You got to realize you're going to have losses. Not everyone's going to think like you. Your opponents on the other side may get more popular votes than you. You're going to lose sometimes. You've won. Look at what you did. In 73, you overthrew the Supreme Court. You got your way. You got what you wanted. You've got what you wanted since 1973 to now. All these years, you've got what you wanted. Look at us, the pro-lifers. We can't win a victory. In the past, we couldn't win. Everything we tried to do, electing presidents, the presidents we put to this, we elected, they put Supreme Court justices on who were terrible. Like Sandra Day O'Connor, when it comes to abortion, that was a Reagan appointee. He did give a Scalia, Reagan, so that was a great thing. But it still didn't tip the court. Well, now I think the balance of the court is going to be tipped, and I think finally now Roe v. Wade is going to go by the wayside, and we're going to battle it out in the states, which we should have done in the first place. And this woman needs to say, okay, this is what happens in life. Politics is politics. He won, we lost. Ruth died at this point in life. What are you going to do? No one can determine that except God. And he's going to pick somebody who's going to be an originalist. And so it could make Roe v. Wade go by the wayside, which I always thought it did. There are people who are telling me all through my life, Father, you may be pro-life and I am too, and go do your thing. But there's no way Roe v. Wade is ever going to go away. There's no way. I think it will. I always said it would. And now we're starting to see that happen. It's going to go away. But it doesn't mean that abortion is going to be legal in the whole country once it goes away. It's going to mean that every state in their legislature, in their politics, has to battle it out. You have to bring it to the voters. If voters want abortion in their state, like I think the majority do in Rhode Island, sadly to say, even though the majority of people are Catholic, then it's going to be legal in Rhode Island. If you're in Alabama and the people there don't think it should be legal, it's not going to be legal in Alabama. And that's just the way it is. And because it's a life, it's a human life. And I don't think politics should get involved in human life. I think everybody should realize it's science and it should be completely illegal. I think there should be an amendment to the Constitution that says that abortion should be prohibited. We're not anywhere near there yet, but we could be someday. So if kids grow up without getting disappointments, without being told no, without understanding that sometimes you lose, then they're going to flip out when they don't get their way. Like this woman did in this car. Her hair is on fire and she's crying and her hair is in her face and she's screaming. Could 2020 get any worse? Oh, relax. You still have your health. You have your family. You have your friends. Don't let life. This is the Supreme Court, really? All right. So Roe v. Wade goes by the wayside and you have to fight it out in the state now. Go get involved in politics. Run for office if you have to. But don't scream and yell like a little baby because you didn't get your way. Come on. Give me a break here. But this is the generation that we're dealing with. And we have to be kind to them. I mean, it's not, in a way, it's not even their fault. This girl was conditioned to react that way when she didn't get her way. When she didn't get her way when she was a little kid, I bet she screamed and yelled. This woman who's driving that car, I bet she screamed and yelled. And then her parents said, okay. And then she got her way. Well, she's screaming and yelling now in front of the camera, but I'm sorry, but President Trump isn't going to call her up and say, oh, I know you're really screaming and yelling and you want your way. So because you were taking a temper tantrum, I'll put an activist on the court instead of an originalist. I'm sorry. Sorry, honey. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen to us. If Obama's appointees, sorry, they weren't going to be originalists. That's what we had to live with the consequences. We lived to fight another day, and we did, and we became victorious, and that's how you do it. You live for another day. This woman, instead of screaming and yelling, you say, okay, I'm going to live for another day. We lost this battle. We lost a big battle replacing an activist, the most quintessential activist abortionist judge, with what seems to be going to be an originalist. That's a big loss. I understand why you could be upset, but don't let it make you scream and yell and act like a little kid doing a temper tantrum. Do something about it. Okay, I'm going to run for office. That's what we did. That's what we did. Okay, we're going to elect somebody we're going to elect the Senate. We increased our Senate seats in 2018 because we said, look, the Senate's important. They're the ones that get the nominee, that vote on the nominee for the Supreme Court. We're going to increase the number of pro-life senators on the Supreme Court. In 2018, that's what we did. So that's the situation. Why we're in a great situation right now to replace an activist with an originalist. It's about politics. We're not a divine right monarchy. We're not a dictatorship with a liberal dictator president who will do anything these people want, who are liberals. It's not the way it works. We had to live since 1973 until now with a court that has been totally hostile to us. Even Republican appointees have been hostile to us. Now it seems to be switching. The balance is switching, just the way life is. And we have to accept defeats and victories, and hang in there. And you just hope you have more victories than defeats. And that's why I try to work as hard as I can to promote Christian values in the United States of America, because if we can convert souls to Christ and they become authentic Catholics, we're gonna be all set. We just need more authentic Catholics in our country. And the way we do that is by raising them that way, by teaching them, and by persuading them. We don't say to people, you're going to be if you're not Catholic, we're going to burn your city down, and we're going to cause social unrest, and we're going to tip your tables over of your restaurants if you don't become Catholic. That's not how we persuade people to become Catholic. We can't say to them, we're going to have mobs that are going to roam around your neighborhoods and stop traffic unless you convert to Catholicism. That's not what Christ wants. He wants them to be persuaded in their heart. And that's these people who are mob rule people and the Democrats that support them. What are you doing? This isn't a democracy. You gotta persuade people by argument. That's how you're going to get them on your side. You're going to turn people away. That's why the president's going to win in a landslide, because people aren't going to want this craziness and this foolishness, these temper tantrums, and not being able to have a cup of cappuccino and you're in a cafe and a cup of cappuccino and someone comes over and spills it on you. What's that all about? That's not America. And people leave there and they're like this. They may be, leaning Democrat, they may be Democrat their whole life, and they're going like this, and they're going, okay, if this is the way you guys are going to play, I don't want to be a part of it. I'm not going to talk to the polling people and tell them how I'm voting. I'm not going to put a lawn sign on my house and my property. I'm not going to put a bumper sticker on my car. But you know what? I'm going to go and vote privately in the booth. And if it's legitimate, I think there's going to be a majority of people, a huge majority of people that are going to vote against these mobs and the politicians who are turning a blind eye again to support them. All right. Covered a lot of ground here, didn't we? With Sinatra in the back. How can you go wrong with Sinatra in the background? I love him very, very much. I miss him. He was like I miss my father, God rest his soul. And, he was like, Frank Sinatra was kind of like a father, to me growing up. You hear his voice, you listen to him, you beautiful singer. Other people admired him. He's kind of like, for me growing up, he was kind of like a father, to me. I never met him, of course. I came very close to meeting him. Mayor Paolino, and I, when I was working for him, were backstage in Providence Civic Center, and Mayor Paolino was right next to me. And we went into the backstage after we saw him in concert, and Paolino said to me, "You want to meet Sinatra?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." So we went back there, and then his son came back, and he said, "Hey, I'm sorry, Mayor, but my dad's tired, and he's not really going to be greeting anyone." And then I came this close to meeting him, and I appreciate Paolino for bringing me, back there with him, to try and get me in there to see him. But it didn't work. But I would have loved to have met him. But anyway, it's good to have him here in the background, in his great pose, and hopefully looking up to heaven, and that's, we all have to look up in that direction, to praise God for our lives. Don't let politics, we talked about it today, politics, and I love talking politics, and it's interesting, but don't let it like, get you to the point where it's going to ruin your whole life. Look, this is the way it is. We love baseball teams. I love the Yankees. They lose sometimes. Some of the most disappointing things in my childhood is when they lost. Probably the toughest loss was what was it, the 1980 or 1981 World Series against Los Angeles, the Dodgers, when we played them. I think it was 80 or 81. We won the first 2 games when we were home, and thinking, okay, maybe we won the first 3 games. I think we won the first 3 games, and we just needed one more game, and we ended up losing the World Series that year. That was a real big disappointment. So you're going to have disappointments, but you know what? We have victories too, 96, 98, 99, 2000, 2009, you have victories and you have losses, and the same is true as politics. And it shouldn't separate us from being friendly to each other, being friends. Okay, I believe what I believe, you believe what you believe, but don't let it affect us to the point where, we're not going to be cordial to each other, or polite to each other, or believe that we want the best for each other. We don't wish ill on anyone. We don't want anyone to be, we don't want to wish ill on anybody, no matter what their beliefs are. We're Americans, and that's what we have in common. We have a common history as Americans. And that really is what we come from. Different parts of the world as Americans. Some come from Asia, some come from India, which is Asia, but some come from, Africa, some come from South America, some come from Italy, France, Spain, Europe. But, we're all in this together as Americans, and we should love our heritage, and we should promote our heritage, and love where we came from. But love too, where we are now, not only where we came from, but where we are now. And we're Americans, and that's where we are now. And we're all Americans, and we all believe in this experiment of a democratic republic and how it's supposed to function. That an outgoing president is supposed to be have a easy transition to the one coming in. We didn't have that 4 years ago, an easy transition. But that can't be the case. We have to have a fair elections, and we don't know if that's going to happen this time. They're sending ballots out to everybody. I don't know. People are going to be voting 3 times. It's a big mess, and this is the world we live in. But in all of this, we have to have our inner core peace, and we have to keep consistent with prayer. We have to keep persisting in prayer. Prayer is the answer. Our religion, our faith in God and Jesus Christ and our Catholic Church, that's the answer. The Catholic Church has been around for 2,000 years. America has only been around since 1776. 776 years, the Catholic Church existed and America didn't. So Catholic Church is going to exist as long as until Christ comes back. So that really is where our ultimate allegiances are, is to the Catholic Church, to the Pope, to our moral beliefs, our moral core beliefs. And that really is what matters. So elections may come and go, but our faith is here with us forever and forever and in eternity. And in eternity, we're not going to be an American anymore. We were Americans in life, but we're not going to be Americans in heaven. We're not going to be Europeans in heaven. There aren't going to be Indians and Orientals and blacks and whites and we're all going to be citizens of heaven, and that's really only the citizenship that's going to matter at the time. Of course, we'll remember being a particular nationality or race or creed, but being Catholic, but not being Christian, but not have an identity like that. So but we do need an identity now. We do need countries, and we do need borders, and we do need law and order. That's the way of the world in which we live needs that. And then we'll be freed from all of this someday when we're in heaven, and we won't need these things. But until then, we do. So anyway, I went on really long today, didn't I? Well, today's my day off, so I really don't have, usually it's, before when I started this, it wasn't my day off. So I had to rush out to do things. But then anyway, so have a very good day. Hope you enjoyed my, ramblings here, and hope I made some sense too in the things I said. We have to love our neighbor, love our enemies, turn the other cheek. Let's make sure we do that. We shouldn't look at people as adversaries because they think differently than us. We should think of them as brothers and sisters who maybe we need to persuade, certainly, no doubt about it, but certainly from a not from an adversarial relationship, but from a brotherly relationship. That really is how we need to convert people and to persuade them, from a friendly manner rather than an adversarial. Okay, so God bless everyone. Have a great day. I'm going to finish my cappuccino here, and I hope you have a good day. I'll see you at some point for the 54-day novena prayer. I'm not sure when I'm going to do it yet, but I'll announce it at some point. Have a good day. God bless everyone. God bless everyone from YouTube. God bless everyone.